Joining us now is Dr. Kelly Levin. She's the Chief Science, Data and Systems Change Officer at the Bezos Earth Fund. She's joining us from Boston, Massachusetts in the United States. Dr. Levin, thank you very much for being with us here on TRT World. Now, this report does not hold back. Will it have much impact?
Well, one can only hope, and we need it to have impact because the governments around the world are coming together in just a few months at COP26 to up their commitments. And this should be a real wake-up call that we need to have a sea change in terms of the way that we are approaching climate action.
And you mentioned COP26. I mean, are you confident that when the nations come together, the world leaders all meet in Glasgow in November, they will have brought with them workable plans to reduce their global emissions?
So we're starting to see some countries just do that. And we are starting to see a number of countries come together with much stronger commitments. But we still need a number of very large emitters to come forward with much stronger commitments for 2030, because the action that we take this decade will really lock in our emissions trajectory for decades to come.
I mean, what's so scary about this is that it is every single moment that counts, isn't it? I mean, on an individual level, what is it that people can do? Because it does seem as if this is all kind of getting away from us, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that people can do is really vote for those that prioritize a sustainable future, because governments will still play a very significant role in terms of our emissions trajectory. But there certainly is a lot in terms of the changes that we can make today in terms of what kinds of diets we choose to have, what kind of transportation we take, the efficiency of our houses. But at the end of the day, the change that we need is going to be transformational, not incremental. And that's change that we collectively need to make, not only individuals, but corporations and investors and governments.
Absolutely, we all have agency in this. Now, Dr. Levin, fairness is often talked about between developed and developing nations in terms of reducing global emissions. And as you work for a fund that has $10 billion to spend and to try and bring down global emissions, is cash something that can be used to try and help in that sort of fairness, that inequality that you see between nations?
Well, what we know is that developing countries are going to need a lot of technological capacity, financial capacity, and the investments that are required in just this decade alone are going to be significant to be able to get through an innovation agenda. But on the other hand, it brings to a lot of benefits, and we're starting to see new jobs and much more well-being with a sustainable future than with 31.
And finally then, Dr. Levin, every time I get to speak to a climate scientist, I do ask this question about the generational change. How confident are you that people who were born perhaps in the year 2000 or even later are more aware of the dangers that we face as a human race and will be more equipped and ready to deal with the issues that climate change brings?
Well, it does give me hope that you see this tremendous youth movement in the streets that are calling upon all actors of society to have much, much greater action. And the changes that we're seeing today, whether or not it's flooding in China and Germany and Belgium, or Arctic fires and in the northwest of the United States and Canada, these are just with 1.1 degrees of warming, let alone 1.5 degrees of warming, or even up to 5.7 degrees of warming in a high emission scenario. So it's just a taste of what's to come. And I am hopeful that those that are calling upon the leaders of the world are going to be impactful.
Yeah, I hope so too. We've got plenty of work to do. Dr. Kelly Levin from the Bezos Earth Fund, do appreciate your time and best of luck in all your work.